Introduction to Solving an Equation with Parentheses. All right, so we have an equation over here that it does look a little bit more involved than the ones we haven't had before. Ooh, I gotta turn my pen size down there. That looked really funky for a second. All right, 3v plus 8. So we have 2 times 3v plus 8 equals 70. So this is our first time dealing with parentheses since we have introduction to solving equations with parentheses, or at least it's the first time we're dealing with it in an equation. So the first thing we need to do, and I'm going to write it up here, we need to remember Pemdas. I spelt it wrong, darn it. So it was MD. So we have parentheses, then exponents, multiplication, division go together, and then addition, subtraction, they kind of go together as well. But we do them from left to right, just to make sure that we do them in the right order. So when I say parentheses, though, what I mean is we simplify everything in the parentheses. And part of simplifying everything in the parentheses is dealing with this 2 on the outside because it's being multiplied in the parentheses. Now in here I have 3v plus 8. I can't add these together because they don't both have a v. So we have to think of this. Darn it, I don't have an undo button. I'm going to have to erase that and then rewrite it. Oops, geez Louise. So I'm going to have to think of this 3v as something a little different. It's being multiplied. So even if we use the order of operations, I can't add the 8 until I do my multiplication. So order of operations prevents me from combining the 3 and the 8. But what it doesn't prevent me from doing is dealing with this 2 because now I have to deal with these parentheses. So what I want to do with the 2 is distribute. And distribute just means you take whatever's in front of the parentheses, this 2 for example, and we multiply by everything that's inside of there. Now one of the biggest mistakes I see students make on this one is they only multiply by the first number and then they stop. You have to multiply by everything that's in the parentheses. It doesn't matter if there's 20 things in the parentheses. Keep multiplying until you multiply by everything. So then we end up with 2 times 3 is 6. Don't forget to bring the v with it. It had a v. Make sure it has a v once you're done multiplying. Plus 2 times 8, we get 16. And now we've dealt with that distribution, which was the reason the multiplication was there. So we don't have, the reason the parentheses were there. I really can't talk right now. Silly me, keep mixing up all my words. So that the 2 is the reason the parentheses were there. So now we don't have to put the parentheses back. We've already dealt with it. But we do need to bring down equals 70. All right, now we can solve this one just like we would solve any other one. So we want to get v all by itself. That's our goal. So we start undoing the things that are being done to v. Once you have it simplified, it's backwards on Pemdas, except for parentheses and exponents, because we shouldn't have these once we've simplified things, unless your variable is being squared. But if that's the case, then you can't really simplify that anymore. So once you get to the point where you're trying to solve the equation, you start going backwards. So we do addition, subtraction first, and then multiplication, division. So to undo the addition here, the plus 16, I subtract 16. I'm going to bring 6v down because I haven't done anything with it. 16 minus 16 cancels. And you can also use the rules of addition for integers in this one. We have opposites, so we subtract, and then the bigger number would decide my sign. 16 minus 16 is 0. I don't need to worry about a sign because 0 doesn't have a positive or negative. And I don't need to write down plus 0 here either because there's no reason to. So now I have 70 minus 16. So let's see, if we borrow here, we get 4 and 5. All right, so the last thing we want to do, because we still want to get v by itself, I want to undo the multiplication that's happening here. So to undo multiplication, I divide on both sides of the equal sign. 6 divided by 6 is 1. So the v drops down, equals 54 divided by 6 is 9. All right, and that's exactly what they got here in their example. So I like to see it a little bit more vertically, and I like to talk through the steps so you can see exactly what's happening in these steps. And I know they do have you go through it here, but if you weren't quite sure what they did, having seeing this part might help you just work through it a little bit nicer. All right, so I'm going to clear all this out. And we're going to go ahead and start this example or this topic. All right, so I'm going to change my color here just so it's not super duper bright on us. We'll go back to some brighter colors here for the distribution part. So remember, we have to do PEMDAS when we're simplifying. So remember, PEMDAS is just about simplifying an expression. An expression is going to be one side or the other of the equation. But when we're actually solving the equation, we start going backwards. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is deal with the parentheses here. We have 3u minus 8. We've already talked about this. We can't add the 3 and the 8 together because of PEMDAS. I have 3 times 8, so I'd have to do multiplication before I could subtract. So multiplication comes before subtraction. But parentheses do come first, so I need to deal with this 3 that's out in front. And this means multiplication, so I'm going to multiply by everything that's in here. So 3 times 3u gives me 9u. 3 times negative 8 gives me negative 24. And that's going to equal 21, so I just bring the equal 21 down. All right, so now we're at the point where we're going to start solving because it's as simplified as it's going to get. Now I just need to start getting u by itself. So this is the point where we start going, here I'll use red, why not? It's kind of a good opposite from blue there, or a good contrast to blue. All right, so we're going to start going backwards. We're going to do addition and subtraction first, then multiplication, division. So I want to find what's being added or subtracted on the side with the u. I don't want to move this 21. It's already by itself. So I want to make sure I'm moving the number away from the variable. So we have negative 24. I want to add 24 because that will undo the subtraction. Whatever I do to one side of the equation, I have to do to the other. So we bring 9u down. I haven't done anything with 9u yet, so just bring it down. Make sure you bring things down. Another one of the big mistakes on this one is I see students just simply not bring things down. They forget to bring it all down, and then they get to a certain point where they don't understand what to do next because they haven't brought the pieces down. All right, so negative 24 plus 24. They're opposites. So you subtract 24 minus 24. Well, that's 0. So they cancel. And I don't have to worry about positive or negative, and I don't have to write it down because plus 0 minus 0 won't matter. It doesn't change anything. Once it's 0, we're good. So now we bring down our equal sign, and we have 21 plus 24. So we get 45. Our last step is to undo this multiplication. So we divide on both sides. 9 divided by 9 is u, and that equals 45 divided by 9 is 5. All right, so let's type that in, check, and we're good to go. So next, clear. All right, so let's go ahead and write our equation down. Okay, so let's go, and we'll start with red on this one. So again, there's nothing that we can simplify inside of the parentheses yet. I don't know what u is, so I can't add it to 3. I can write it as u plus 3, but I can't actually add them. I don't know what to add together. So what I can do is deal with this 5 outside of here. I'm going to distribute it to everything that's inside of the parentheses. So first, 5 times u gives me 5u. Plus 5 times 3 gives me 15. And then I just write equals 50 because I just bring it down. So now this is the point. It's simplified as far as I can go. So now I need to start solving. So remember, this is the point where we start going backwards on PEMDAS. So I want to find what's being added or subtracted on the same side as the variable. So I want to move this 15 first. So I'm going to undo the addition with subtraction. And bring down my 5u. Again, don't forget to bring things down. And then we have positive 15, negative 15. One's positive, one's negative, so I subtract. 15 minus 15 is 0. Oh, good. They cancel. I don't have to worry about them anymore. So now I'm going to do 50 minus 15, and I'm going to borrow, and I get 5 and 3. Okay, so now I want to undo this multiplication, and I do that by dividing on both sides of the equal sign. 5 divided by 5 cancels because it becomes 1. Any number divided by itself becomes 1. Equals 35 divided by 5 is 7. All right, so we should have 7 over here. Check. All right, let's do one more of these. And 2 times 4x minus 9 equals 14. All right, so at this point we understand we can't combine what's in the parentheses, but we can distribute outside of here. So this is the third one. So I'm hoping by now we understand we're distributing first and then solving the equation. So we have 4 times 2, we get 8x. And then 2 times negative 9, we get negative 18 equals 14. And I just brought the 14 down. All right, so now we're going to start solving for this x and getting it by itself. So we look for what's being added or subtracted on the same side, and we undo it. So we have negative 18. To undo that, I add 18. All right, I'm going to bring down 8x, and I have negative 18 plus 18. So remember, plus minus, we subtract. As long as it's the same number, it becomes 0. So they always cancel. That's the point. We want them to cancel. So now we have 14 plus 18, and we get, let's see, 32. So our last step here is to undo the multiplication by dividing. So 8 divided by 8, we get 1. Any number divided by itself, we get 1 there, and we just bring the x. You don't have to put 1x because it's assumed that there's a 1 there. 32 divided by 8 is 4. All right, so 4 and check. Yay, we finished another one.